Jessica joins us now in a daytime exclusive, her first interview since the release of her memoir. Please, Tam Fam, let's welcome Jessica Willis Fisher. Hi, how are you? Good to have you. Thank you. Have a seat. This is the second time our paths have crossed.
Yeah.
I first met you with your family when I was over at the Today Show.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a lot about you last night, honestly, and you always ask yourself, wow, did I miss something? Were there signs? And I was just trying to think back about that moment and the pressure it was to put on this act for the world and hide these secrets every day. I lost count with how many times you probably appeared on that show with your family and others.
Yeah, there was such a strong public presence for a few years there. And what's interesting is that was not the start of the performing, you know, because we had been performing for years, or I'll just speak for myself. That feels like that had escalated over my entire life.
Meaning your whole life you were performing, and we don't mean on stage.
Yeah,
it means
exactly.
keeping up this facade of this family.
Yeah, and I think that was survival for me, you know, being whatever it was that you needed to be, and I needed to be a performer ever since I was little.
You talk about, in that video we just played, you said, better life is worth fighting for.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because people that survive hard things, I think it's so admirable and wonderful when you try to spend your time helping others. That's part of what I would like to do. But also to tell the truth. And I think for me, there's this balance of speaking up, fighting for something is great. A lot of times, though, it gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
So worth fighting for. You know, you don't know where that risk and that journey is going to take you. And, you know, I've written this book, but if you pause it at different parts in the story and just stop, it looks really dark.
It does. I mean, which brings me to, in your blog, you actually shared the first memory of the sexual abuse. And you said that it was around the age of 3. You wrote, initially, I had no way to know that anything was wrong. When I did eventually come to realize that fact, I had no way to accurately express what was happening to me. There followed immense shame, distrust, and hurt throughout my childhood, even in the happy times. Thus ran the 2 parallel stories that became my life. You know, again, I'm watching these performances last night and videos, and
isn't it weird?
it is weird, and you're looking for, you know, weird eye contact.
So I do that too.
You do that too?
I do that too because and I talk about this in the book, but it was like one of the challenging parts was getting to a safer place where I could start really sitting with and admitting what it was that I'd been through. But also, there was all of this kind of evidence that was out there, whether it be stuff that I did on TV, and it all spoke to...
Give me an example of evidence when you look back at it now.
When I say evidence, it's like, I mean that when I look at it, the evidence tells me I was happy. The evidence tells me everything was fine. Like, that's what it's telling me.
So there was no evidence, you feel, when you look at these videos and all those hours on television and all these...
I mean, I think... It's so hard to know, like, what is hindsight? You know, I think I've had a lot of people tell me, oh, the minute I met your dad, I knew something was wrong.
Really?
And, you know, and a lot of that has been after the fact. Like, nobody was saying that in the moment. And so I think it's hard to admit, like, how much of that is that we know now and we look back.
For me, having done, you know, different, you know, interviews with reality families, and of course, not knowing anything is wrong, but I always wonder, like, how much of this is pressure? You know, these kids doing this because they want to do it. That's as far as my mind goes. Like, are they making the kids perform? I don't think anyone imagines something so sinister and evil as what was happening to you, and now he is behind bars for it. Your mother was there the entire time, and you've spoken about her knowing at some point, but she, according to you, was also a victim of abuse. Help us understand her role in this.
That knowing is really complicated.
Right.
because there's what did I know and what did I not know and
Right.
everything. And I don't want to speak for anyone, like including my mom.
Right.
So anyone
And I
other than
understand that,
myself.
and that's very fair.
Right. But like, just to be really clear, I had not told anyone the specifics of what had happened to me until I was 23.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and when I was 23, I did, and I talk about this in my book, but my now husband,
Yeah.
there were so many people, Sean, yeah. So many people that played such a crucial role, like maybe that was like a really small interaction or something, but like they'll never know how impactful that was for me, whether it was giving me courage or giving me a bit of information.
And I want
or
to talk
something.
more about how Sean and his family came in at this time in your life. But going back to your mother,
Yeah.
how do you explain, without her
Right.
being here, what she was enduring, which you mention in the book?
Well, I can speak to like my viewpoint of that. And I really felt like it was very helpful for me to look at my experience in the context of other people who went through the things that I did and to learn from them and to get a vocabulary. And I'm doing that for myself. I'm also doing that to try to understand my greater family story. Like our stories are all mixed in. You know, it's like, what an intro, you know, like there's so many people involved. And that's hard to try to be respectful of people's different stories. And that's part of
And
the
your
answer.
mom has her story. So let me ask you this. Has your father attempted to reach out to you when the memoir came out and over this time?
So my understanding is that at least when the investigation was happening, there is not supposed to be any contact. And then I have continued in the choice for myself to want to have a healthy, safe, positive life. And part of the reason why I feel like I have that now more than ever is that he's not a part of it. So that's been my choice up until now.
Coming up, how Jessica finally escaped the abuse, and we'll hear how she is thriving now, new music and telling her story in her words. And we'll find out how Sean has been there at her side, her husband, after the break. Welcome back. Jessica Willis Fisher is with us, sharing the painful truth behind her family's popular, perfect public image that we watched from America's Got Talent and their TLC reality show, The Willis Clan. Her new memoir, Unspeakable, tells her story and how she is now working to leave her mark on life after experiencing years of sexual abuse at the hands of her father that started, she says, at the age of around 3. Before we went to the break, Jessica, we were talking about your mom, and you said she's been very supportive of the book.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, that's just been the most healing thing for our relationship is to have her support. And I do feel like all throughout those years, as crazy as it seems, I think I always knew that she loved me.
Yeah.
And I think now she can love me in a much healthier way because she was always loving and trying to take care of like dad first. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
That was the first allegiance that we all had.
First
not just
allegiance
Mom.
was to Toby
100%.
Willis. You all, 12 of you, range in age now. 12 is the youngest, and 30 is the oldest right now. What is your relationship as you try to find your own voice, but also revealing this painful secret?
Well, it's complicated, and after my dad was arrested, I wasn't in a place where I really wanted to talk publicly. I was kind of, as I think of, in the emergency room of life, and some of my siblings wanted to talk and do different things, and so trying to support everybody in what they want to do, try to respect their privacy, this is what I want to do now, this is what I want to say, and I'm so grateful to have their support, and I try to just concentrate on being the healthiest and best daughter and sister that I can, because we didn't have the opportunity to do that before.
Yeah, you were performing constantly. So interesting. I mentioned your husband, Sean Fisher, his family, they run Opryland, where you've performed on your own recently. It's so striking that your father let you date him because his family was heavily connected in the country music world.
So my now father-in-law was the general manager of the Opry at the time, and so that's how I met him first. And then at some point I met Sean, didn't really remember meeting him the first time, but there was, I think, I mean, I can't speak to exactly what was going through like my dad's head, but there very much was, I talk in the book, this idea of us versus them, way more so than anybody ever knew. Like, my dad just thought he was the smartest person in the room at all times.
Yeah. He's a controlling figure. Everything that you describe in this book is this controlling figure. So you start to date Sean.
But if he thinks you can get something from, you know, like that sort of thing. So there was a little bit of like, we could communicate. But pretty soon it followed the pattern of, nope, there's too much ability for you to kind of go out on your own here, and I need to be in control of
And as
that.
he was trying to get that control, Sean and his family, your husband and his now husband and his family, helped you escape your home. And as you pointed out, it was 23 years old when you finally spoke out loud about this abuse. What did they see that ignited this desire to help you and saw that you were in need of this help?
Sometimes I don't feel like I have an answer to that. I don't always know why people have been so supportive and have gone to the lengths that they've gone to help me or my family, and I'm just super grateful for that.
Yeah.
And just to be really clear, like, I had not told them what I was going through. They did not know any specifics. It's not like somehow they knew or they were there for that.
Right.
But I talk about in the book my husband sharing that he had somewhat of an understanding of these things and kind of made a guess and was like, is this kind of what's going on?
He put it together, put some pieces together.
Yeah, he shared some things, made himself vulnerable, and then I felt like he had figured it out. And so there was this very much like talking about it without talking about it. And that was coinciding right with when I was not allowed to talk to him anymore. And there was about a year between this moment where I went to my dad in anger and said, I'm leaving, I'm getting out of this situation. But it was a really roller coaster year before I actually followed through with that. So it was actually my 23rd birthday. And then I left right before my 24th birthday. And that was such a dark time.
You know, you in that darkness have found such great light, including performing on stage without the rest of the family, just you finding your voice by yourself. How does that feel?
It's super interesting. It's pretty wild. It feels really right, really healthy. I feel like the part of me that did like performing, did like music, went to that because I love writing. And so now more than ever, I truly feel like I can use my voice to say the truth and like make the art that I want to make and let it be. It's so much healthier connection with my creative side instead of being tied in with all these unhealthy things.
Well, I am so happy you found a way to speak up and speak out. Thank you so much, and thank you for your work that you do with other survivors.